You got to treat yourself like a business, especially in 2021, because it's never been easier to be an artist from a standpoint of, look, if you buy a decent condenser mic for like $500 to $1,000, you get a MacBook Pro, a preamp, and an interface, and you know what you're doing, you can create the quality music on the level that if you have the right marketing and all that, it could get on the radio. Now, 15, 20 years ago, you had to go to $1 million facility to do that, so the game's changed. Anybody can be an artist, and what I like to say is that there's an oversupply of talent and an undersupply of like the management or the people that really know how to do marketing and all of that. That's always been the label's job, and it still is, and the label can be very beneficial in many instances. So I don't want, because I'm always a proponent of staying independent or creating a partnership with a label, and we'll talk about that. But at the end of the day, I feel like labels still have a place, and there's a lot of great partnerships and labels. I'm sure Niles is going to talk about that you can make with a label, because essentially it's part of your team. If you can make that scenario happen and they're part of your team, it's a good working relationship. That's probably why, honestly, Drake may not be going independent, because he understands the value of the team that he has at the label. Whatever split he has, that's cool. But he may not want to be a CEO, run a company, and look at spreadsheets all day and reports and all that, even though he have made people for that. Or he already has that in place with the label, you know what I'm saying? But we're going to talk about all that. So we'll start over again. No, it's all good. It's all good, man. Thank you for coming through. So, and I want you on, multiple times, because I think we talked about it on the phone, but I want to start having panels every month before we do the whole interview thing to sort of give back to the artists and teach them more behind the scenes stuff, because I was talking earlier, I don't think it's talked about enough. Probably more so than ever. I'm sure you would agree.
Oh, yeah, it's never talked about.
Or it's never talked about, there you go.
Not really.
So, hopefully we'll be able to get you guys some gems that you could really understand and start moving the right way, because the reason I'm here today is probably like a lot of you, I got scammed for a good $30,000 of hiring the wrong people, marketing teams, PR teams, selling me smoke and mirrors. And I knew that marketing and promo was necessary. I just didn't know how bad I was going to get gotten for. But I don't look at it negatively. At the end of the day, that was the cost of education, to learn what not to do. And I'm still here. I didn't give up, and it got to the next level. But Niles, I want you to introduce yourself and how you went from a heavy hitter to a label VP and all of that. And then.
So my name is Niles Goodwin. Basically, I've been in the game since I was an intern. When I was in school in 2002, I never went to spring break, which I should have. Interned every moment I got at Def Jam, which was the hot label at the time. So it was like Nori, Red and Met, Diplomat. So at the time, Island Def Jam was pretty much Murder Inc., Rockefeller, Def Jam. So since Def Jam kind of distributed all that, we dealt with everybody. So it was crazy back then. Like, Meth would come through and jump on everybody's desk and wild out, and they're smoking and everything. Exactly how high it was. But then, so like kind of how like labels kind of work, or we'll say the industry works, all the like Mike Kaiser, Kevin Niles, everybody actually switched and everybody went to Atlantic. In about 2005, I was coming out of school, so those are the people I was interning with, so Def Jam was a wrap for me, and I went to Atlanta because that's where the people I interned for were. And they gave me a little job, probably getting like $1,000 a month, fresh out of school, but it's all I wanted to do. In terms of this guy named Sam Crespo, and then this guy named Azim Rashid gave me my shot. And he was like, what I did was I do radio promotion. So basically like we break artists on the radio. And we still do like club, like lifestyle and all that stuff. But that was the main goal. So he hired me, kicked me out the office, and said, I don't want to see you for a month. And my job was to basically meet everybody, because I didn't know a lot of people. And he's like, take artists with you when you go. So we're just ripping and running. I'm making the relationships, having an artist makes it a lot easier, rather than you being a nobody and you going up to a radio station, yo, I'm so-and-so. They don't care. You got an artist with you, you good. So, but I just kept building and building. So I was at Atlantic for about 5 years. Then I went independent. So then I worked for a company that labels was just higher. So I was living back and forth between LA and New York. Did that for like 3 years, then went to Sony, Columbia Sony for 3 years, Interscope, and now I'm at Capitol where I'm a VP of promotion. That's the journey in Cliff Notes.
How'd you become a heavy hitter?
So, so when I was an intern at Def Jam, Enough worked with this company called RPM. But my job was just to go give Enough music. So every time a record would come out, we're talking vinyl. We weren't dishing out MP3s yet. I would have to physically get on the train and go downtown and give him records. So it'd be him, DJ Cass One from Hot 97, L Boogs from Power 105, and this girl Jazz Poe, who works at Rock. They were there, and so they didn't know me. So just after Enough would see me. All right, I got a little cool, and then shout out to his security, Hools. Hools used to let me in the back door at Hot 97, because I'm not walking to the front. They don't know who I am. So I just built with Enough over time, and he gave me my first spin. I think it was like a Lupe Fiasco record, like that I got by myself on Hot 97. I thought it was the most crazy thing in the world. He gave me a shout out. I thought, I'm like, this is it. And then I just always stayed tight. Enough has always showed me so much love in the world. And then finally he was like, hey man, he's like, I want you on board. So then I became a heavy hitter. And it's like, I DJ, but that's not really the aspect I do. Do more like administrative type of stuff and help keep stuff organized along with Venicia, who's another manager, and my guy Los, who also helps. But yeah, I figured it took, if I met Enough in 2002, I might have been maybe like 8 years until I was a heavy hitter. But I just wanted to be down, because that was the crew.
It's the power of building relationships.
Yeah.
So again, I don't know if I introduced myself, but my name is Matei. And the way I got into this was, like I told you, first, I was in other industries. I had a company in energy efficiency, basically doing energy audits on residential homes and commercial buildings in Maryland. That's where my headquarters is still at. Before that, I came from Eastern Europe, Slovakia. That's where I'm from. So I came here as a young teenager to the United States. But after college, got into the real estate industry, software development. I was always the CTO, the tech guy. And when the money was good in like 2013, 14, I always wanted to be in the music industry. From back when I used to be the kid that would sell the CDs in high school, because I was a foreign kid, so I couldn't do anything too stupid because I would get deported. It was always my mom in the back of my head like, don't do nothing stupid, get deported. So I was the first kid with the 1X burner. It took 50 minutes to burn a 50-minute CD. So, I know artists didn't like bootleggers back in the day, but I was the kid that everybody went to. Like, let me get this CD. I would download songs off of LimeWire and all that. So, in college, I kind of gave that up as a side hustle. But when the money was good with the old company, I really wanted to get into music. So I got into engineering, like music. I even did a few tracks for MMG, for Rocky Fresh, production, mix and master, another mix and master for Universal Records for Unknown Artist. And I had a studio in my, townhouse back in Maryland. So I dumped a lot of money into it as a hobby, as a producer, as an engineer, and of course I wanted to create a label, but not a traditional label, but an artist incubator. Because what helped me in the other industries was business incubators that were usually run through universities or like the economic development office in the county, and they provide us with resources, how to get SBA loans, how to get connected to the right accountants, lawyers, and all that. And it was a lot of help, because when we were coming up, we had to figure shit out on our own as entrepreneurs. I didn't go to school for business. I went to school for mechanical engineering, which I'm glad now that I did, because business I learned on my own regardless. If you're gonna be, hustling out there doing whatever, you're gonna have to figure it out eventually. So, and as I said earlier, in like 2015, 2016, when I was doing it sort of just like one toe dipped in and I was still focused on another company, I definitely spent at least 30K on an artist who's still with me now. But that was on learning what not to do. Going to all the bullshit showcases in the DMV area, because it's not really a music business, like town, the digital marketing we got scammed on, the PR, that did have the right connections to the big blogs, but it didn't tell us that we didn't have anything yet to really talk about. So we never, that was not fruitful. So after that, when I got into the music industry full time, I was like, all right, I'm gonna go back to my incubator idea, and I'm just gonna start promoting myself, promoting my artists. I helped Gabe, Third Eye Sound, who was here, with some online promotion, and I just started putting it online and build a brand of people hitting me up, DMing me like, yo, we could use that. Can you guys do that for us? So then I started Digital Science Media as a marketing agency to do marketing the right way. None of the BS, perception data, which we're gonna talk about and all that, but that was my passion to build artists because I want to be in the music industry and bring in the real business infrastructure, because I believe, just like I was helped with figuring out the business side, if any artist in 2021 can figure out the business and they're talented, they can either be very successful independent or get to a situation where they do work with a label that's a successful story and a partnership and not a horror story that you usually never hear about, but there's plenty of them out there. So that's kind of my story. So, and now being involved with, help JC, who's the owner of Colorworks, promote one of his artists. Same thing, we developed a relationship. That's how I got involved with the show with Enough. And, I'm grinding myself. I'm coming up here, helping them up on my own dime, bringing my own guys here, hotel rooms every month and all that. Not getting paid for it yet, but it's part of building and understanding who you're working with, who's got the leverage and why, how you guys can work together, work together, grow together, benefit off of each other, and there's nothing wrong with that, but you have to know when to be able to do that and when not to be able to do that, when to not to waste your time and when to utilize your time on the right things, even though you gotta, give your time for free. So I'm glad Niles is here because I'm gonna try to pick his brain about his label experience and everything they do with artists. But the first question I wanna ask you is, how have you seen labels change over the last 15 years from like the technology standpoint and how they operate internally because of all the streaming, and it's just not how it used to be? Like, do you think they're organized and getting technologically advanced, or some yes, some not?
Yeah, so when it started, when I started, there was no streaming. So basically, the promo department, with us doing radio, we were today's streaming, so to say. So, it wasn't, people. It was, you listen to the radio, you buy the CD, or bootleg it from him, or you gotta have however you could. But then at the time, radio, I think, was more impactful because that was the outlet for free music, unless you were just listening to it on the internet. But that was like the media. Like DJ Enough has the New It Too, and that's how we started new artists, and you keep chipping away. But yeah, over time, radio is still 100% relevant. It's a media that's never gonna go away. But with streaming, we might do a little less promo and focus more on streaming because, there's a free Pandora, there's a free Spotify. You just gotta listen to the commercials. But that's the easy way now to listen to music. Not everybody has cars. Everybody sold a car through the pandemic. So everything's on your phone nowadays. And radio stations do have apps where you can stream the music, but you're gonna go to Spotify or Pandora or whatever, the typical way to get music is. So we've changed focus. We still focus, we just added a focus basically, because we still go super hard with radio because people still listening to like Enough, for example. If you're in New York and you can hear your record on Hot 97, it's a great feeling. I don't care what you say. It's a great feeling. And you're not gonna get that from streaming. Yeah, you can, what I love about streaming is anybody can put their music up. So it opened the gate for more people to be heard. But at the same time, on the broad stream of radio, everybody can't just get the record played on on any radio station around the country. You gotta have a label rep or a connection or somebody knows who somebody, blah, blah, blah. But that's the dope thing about streaming is I could put a record up tomorrow and tell everybody here, go listen to my record. Who knows what's gonna happen? But it made it more available. So now we focus on both, not just radio, because obviously streaming is killing it.
No, you're right. And I would agree with like certain stations like Hot 97, because every time I go to Europe to visit my family and I'm in Prague in Eastern Europe and Slovakia, you can actually get Hot 97 on iHeartRadio, where it's syndicated digitally and it has that brand, right? When I was here 2 weeks ago for the Fashion Week, you know, when DJ Walla was on Saturday night just like rocking it in his mix, man, that feeling, like you can't get that from Spotify. Because it's his selection of songs, he's vibing potentially with the DMs he's getting real time from people that are, you know, interacting with him while he's spinning it. And it's just, you know, it's a different feel. So I agree with that certain type of stations, especially in markets like New York, LA, or Miami, it's crucial, right? But like to what he said, Spotify is that interaction thing. Like you find an artist on Spotify, you could probably go right away to their Instagram if you know how to, you know, get into the artist page and connect in a way that you may not be able to do it through the radio, but radio may be the first gateway that you ever hear about a certain artist, depending on how, you know, they got on air. Which brings me to the next question. What level, like, let's say the artists at Capitol, the ones that are virtually unknown to the nation, they may be like buzzing in New York, that's why they got signed initially. At what point do you go to the radio? Do you go right away and mix it together with promotion behind streaming and digital, or is there like a sequence, you would say?
So, I mean, for example, the kid K Flocka from the Bronx, he's still new. His music's on streaming, but what we're doing currently is, you know, we're gonna link up with them and then we're gonna bring him around kind of all the people in New York. So like Enough will meet him. You know, he'll come, you know, come do Outside the Box, which is a good outlet for new artists. We'll have the influencers in New York meet him. You know, there's still the groundwork that you gotta set. It's not you just send the email and, oh, this is the new artist we got. People get 1,000 emails every day. So it's like, you know, that's where I guess like a reputation comes in. So, you know, I'll call, yo, E, can I put this kid on Outside the Box? You know, E will review it and be like, all right, do it. You know, but I still gotta tell E, yo, this kid's the hottest thing coming out of Bronx right now. You know, Bronx got their own drill thing going. So I still gotta sell him on it, you know what I'm saying, to try and make him really wanna have him on the show. But I mean, so the groundwork is all still there. Streaming is, with the streaming thing, yeah, he puts it up and then there's a whole separate department that pushes it to like all the new playlists and, you know, past Spotify, like Amazon Music, like a little secret be told, I'll tell it anyway. CJ, the Whoopty record was actually pushed crazy in Australia and it came back to the US. Because again, you just figure radio is hard to get a record played. Think about how many artists are on the streaming platform alone. Too many to even do anything with. So they got clever and it was bubbling in New York, but to get like the whole country, because it's a New York record. I mean, you know, I found out what they did, but yeah, they went and pushed hard because Australia is a big market for music, and then it was like #1 over there, and then it came back. So there's all type of ways, like it's not just New York, and you start with New York. You know, if I got a Capella Grave, for instance, the Gallus record, all I did was New York to Boston. I didn't focus on anywhere else at first. I just had to smash out the East Coast, the Northeast. And then when they see it buzzing, all right, then I'll go down south to Florida where there's more of a West Indian, you know, audience. In the Carolinas, there's not really too West Indian heavy, you know. So I'm gonna skip that. So it's like you gotta kind of target market at the same time too, like when we get a new artist. So New York, yeah, like Capella Grave is a good example where I built the foundation at home and then I spread it to the places where it's gonna be harder. Because you gotta build a story as you go. Like I can't call somebody in, you know, in Seattle and be like, yo, I got the most fire record with a West Indian vibe to it. And they'd be like, what? And you know, so it's a grind. So you gotta lay a whole foundation before you start pushing everything everywhere.
It's almost like a test, right? Like if you could show to the label that, all right, it's bubbling in New York and Boston, you probably get the next set of funds and say, all right, now I'll go to Miami, go to the next big market. That all costs travel time, money, your time, other people's time, right?
Yeah, but if you can do that on your own, like, me personally, I'm not A&R, so I can't say it, but I think if you can get yourself buzzing, you know, if you're from the Bronx, get to Bronx, Mount Vernon, you know what I'm saying, YO, bubble it out, and then, you know, you got to keep spreading. If you're proactive like that, we pay attention to that because we can tell, you know, if Westchester is streaming crazy out of this record or Brooklyn's streaming. I mean, you know, you guys can see it too. It's on Spotify. I mean, it might not show because they only show 20 songs, but there's also this thing called chart metrics, which I actually pay for myself. You can legit get mad info. It might be like $1,500 a year, but you can get anything. Like, not saying forget a record label, you can get anything from chart metrics. Like what? No, like if you put out a record and you streaming it, it's going crazy in East New York, you can see that. You're not gonna see that on Shazam because, you know, they only show the first top 20 records. But you can see everything that's going on from Amazon to Pandora to, you know, there's low budget, not low budget, I should say low budget, but like streaming platforms that are like way nobody pays attention to, but, you know, the new 12-year-old kids coming up on whatever grade that is, they might listen to it. So it's worth the bread. Like I use it, people just call me and I use it and I give out all types of info. Like it's not just for my label, it's literally everybody. If you want a streaming platform, they can pick up your info. And I don't work for chart metrics. No,
you can start in the beginning.
You can start in the beginning.
What's the name of it?
Chartmetrics.io.
Chart metrics, yeah. Yeah. Huh?
That's just to track your streams? Is that app for it?
I don't think so. You got to go to the website and sign up.
Chartmetric.io, you got to pay for it. Look, so another way you could do it, it's easier because it aggregates all the data into one dashboard. You could see your Spotify, your Apple Music, title, all of that, the playlist, the demographics. Otherwise, you got to pull I don't know if you guys know, you can have Spotify for artists, Apple Music for artists, Amazon Music for artists. Pandora has its own platform called AMP, where you can look at your data. And the other ones, you can't really get your data unless you go to District and it just shows you where it's streaming. But Tidal has their own platform in the back end that shows the demographics and the playlists and things like that as an example. So does Chartmetric have Tidal numbers or just the same ones you can get through like District?
I think Tidal's on there too. Yeah. Everything should be on there.
You know, but that's powerful because what he's saying, like what we do in digital marketing, for example, right? Let's say you got a decent budget and we start marketing your record to like the big markets and we can track where the positive comments or numbers are coming from. If we spend a couple $1,000s and like Niles is saying, we could see that Bronx and Brooklyn and like New York in general is just rocking with the song, we might as well quadruple down on that market and put the next set of $5,000 in marketing and saturate New York. Especially if we know that our artist that we're working with has a relationship maybe with me and I can introduce him to enough. It could be an outside the box where he's got a relationship with Niles. You know what I'm saying? You combine all these different marketing aspects together on a particular area where your resources are at, it's better used, right? That's why if you guys follow me or watch my accelerator, all these little tricks and shit where like people market your music to India just to get your video 250,000 views. Okay, yeah, cool, you got 250,000 views, but how many people are you gonna have to trick with that to think that you're bubbling? Why not just put in the real work? Yes, you're gonna have to pay 10 times more to get 250,000 views in New York City, but if you got people down here and resources and connections, that thing's gonna take you way further than getting 6 different songs for cheap, getting views and this is real data out of foreign countries. You know what I'm saying? There's a certain point where you can combine those different strategies, but just put in work where you know it could be fruitful. You know what I'm saying? And you could see this data. Like we ran just to give you a small example, we did an entry level, like a radio campaign for 15 grand in like Class C markets like Salisbury, Maryland, and like these towns usually don't hit, you know, they got like 50,000 people in population. But when the record was played, what I was doing on the independent side for my client is we're looking at the Shazam data. If you can at least get a couple dozen Shazams out of that area, and you may even see a comment, right? So what we know where the radio stations are playing it. We're also digital marketing into those locations because you could target Facebook, Instagram, YouTube ads just to Salisbury, like if you wanted to. So if you see a situation where in the comments you see like, yo, I just heard this kid on the radio, and you get Shazams, and maybe a few people call on the radio station, which is, you know, for that type of radio campaign, it's probably not going to happen, but it may. You combine all that together, you're like, all right, that's all makes sense. So if our client has another set of funds to put together for Class B market or even Class A on the radio to get like 75 grand, 100 grand, unless I have data like that, I wouldn't even advise anybody on the independent side to push it more, right? It's like progressive, kind of like what Niles is talking about. You first bubble it up, New York, Boston. Works? Okay, let's move down south. Let's move to Miami market or whatever. Because the label is a company. They don't want to waste money. You know, I'm not saying I've seen some labels throw like money against the wall to see what sticks, but that's because they had the funds. You know what I'm saying? But I don't think that happens no more because everything's so digital and accessible.
That was old school Universal.
There you go.
Yeah, they just pump records out. If it's stuck, okay, let's go with it.
Yep.
And I was just a DJ at the time. I just wanted the vinyl. But I'm like, how do you guys put out so much music? And then I found out.
Yep. And what I just found out recently, because we had a client where we did a campaign of pre-save and pre-ad on Apple Music. And we spent like $3 grand on just pre-ads on Apple Music. And when the song came out live, it accumulated so many Shazams that he almost charted regionally on, because you know Shazam has like regional charts now. And I know you guys are looking at that at the label, right? So somebody like Niles can see like, oh shit, who's this kid that came out of such and such nowhere? They might have used our company. Now you may be literally getting a call or a DM from somebody to say, from a label side, let's connect with this artist to see if we can create a situation. Which brings me to the next question, like what do you guys look for artists? Like if Capital is gonna be willing to, you know, reach out to an artist or even put some money behind or like offer a deal in 2021, how does that happen? Like what do you gotta have in place?
I mean, it all depends. Again, I'm not an A&R, but like, so how I've always heard it works is it's, you kind of, the A&Rs are supposed to be in the streets, so to say, to find out what's going on. They don't necessarily have to be in the streets. They can be on, you know, Instagram. You can do a lot more from your house now. But I feel like sometimes they might rely on us because there's a heavy hitter named DJ Sir Manny. I go to him for everything Brooklyn. Everything Brooklyn. Manny was popping. Like, I remember one day I was talking to our president at Capitol, and I was like, yo, if you ever wanted an A&R, I was like, this kid, DJ Sir Manny, calls it every time. Next thing I know, he's following Sir Manny on Instagram. He ain't even following me. But he's following, no, but it's true. But like, I know Manny is getting all the records that's, you know, bubbling up. So that's what that's what we watch. Like, K Flocka did the whole, you know, thing drill out of the Bronx, which is, you know, Brooklyn was owning that. So, you know, paid attention to that. You know, they went after him. So like, you know, Capella Gray is a whole nother beast because he, you know, if you don't know, he's a musician, a producer, a sing, blah, blah, blah. So he was already buzzing around the industry from all the writing and producing he used to do. And then so that's why we paid attention to him. But he knew what he was doing. So, you know, he popped up on the radar. So it's all about, you know, and then it's back to the age group. Like, you know, if there's a high school party or something and this one record is just going crazy with maybe, you know, all the high schools around the city, like, yo, what's that? You're gonna see it, it's gonna pop up. Like, you'll see streams going up or something like one of the other, or to me, word of mouth is still the best promotion. So you'll hear it, you'll see it, and that's how a lot of people go after artists to, you know, try and figure out what's next.
What about my key thing is investors.
So,
How can I get investors?
I mean, well, you gotta find the investors. So it's like, it could be anybody. If your cousin own a restaurant and he got some extra money, could be invested. You gotta sell to the investor. Like, we don't really have anything to do with investors, you know.
But look, like Niles is saying, bottom line, to get on the radar of a label, you gotta create a buzz. And like now, you could convince your cousin or uncle or somebody that you know that owns a restaurant, hey, give me 50K, believe me, sell him a dream. Maybe he does like one of your songs. And they're like, all right, here, make it happen, right? But, you know, I would tell you this, just like you need to create a buzz or do something to get on the radar of a label, it's a lot easier going if you have something to show to an investor to say, I've already invested into myself. I'm already doing X, Y, and Z. We already put up these, even though they're small numbers, relatively speaking, you already done something. And I've been an investor behind artists as well. And at this point, if you're not doing anything on your own, I'm not going to invest in you just because you have talent. Because like I said, the first thing in the beginning, there's an oversupply of talent, in my opinion. And you guys are lucky that you're in New York, because what Niles is talking about, we don't have that in Baltimore. There may be some is there an A&R for Capital in Baltimore?
Probably in DC. I mean, they're really heavy LA. I'm sure there's one in DC, but New York.
And look, and if they are in these areas, those are the guys that scammed me in the beginning. Before I knew what I was doing, like, yeah, pay me $500 to get you in touch with whoever. I work for Sony. Okay, cool. And then he brought me to an office which might have had Sony written on it, but he introduced me to an intern. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't even think that was A&R. That's usually just people just doing. I've heard of that before.
So the bottom line is you got to put in that work, because people ask me all the time, well, I can't get me to a label and all of that. And even with the connections I have now, it's like, even if I went to you and I'm like, look at this dope artist, and you're like, so what are you guys doing? That said he's got a song, like, are you guys moving? Can you come to New York? Can you do this? If there's nothing else behind it, it's very difficult to be willing to invest behind it, because Niles probably gets 30 other submissions a week from probably just as dope artists, or maybe a little less dope in his opinion or people's opinion, but got way more other factors in place to make shit happen. And why wouldn't the label go after a less riskier situation? They're a business at the end of the day, just like you gotta be a business, So you can't just really say, okay, I wanna be an artist, and you probably hear in like business videos and all of that, like companies get off the ground with investors, with some seed funding. But it doesn't work that way. You don't just get up in the morning, figure out, even if you put on the business plan, those days are over. Like maybe 20 years ago, even in the venture capital world for other companies, other industries, software and all that, maybe 20 years ago, if you had a dope idea, you were an engineer coming out of like some college and had an idea, maybe you can get funding for it. But you're gonna get raped on the split. They're gonna be like, all right, we'll take 90% of the equity, you'll take 10. You're not gonna be the CEO of the company, you're just gonna take an engineering plan, right? But this shit doesn't happen anymore. If you want an app to be invested into, you better put up your own 50 grand, and I know that because I have a software development company as well, build the app, get at least 500 people on the app, have them interact with the app, and that's your minimum viable product. It's like your prototype. So then you can go to an investor and say, look, it's kind of working here. Same thing with the artists. They had to see that, CJ was kind of working in Staten Island before. Who brought him up here? Who was the DJ he had a relationship with?
DJ Stacks from Staten Island.
Yeah. So he had a relationship with him for what, 3 years?
Yeah, we've known him forever, yeah.
So it was a building the relationship. Like 99% of the time, if you're a dope artist, you don't just go to an investor and say, my music is dope, come on, give me 50 grand. I've seen that happen, trust me. I've seen, dudes in real estate that were millionaires, they knew some dope, and the artist was talented, and they spent I know this in the DMV market because I know these people, I'm not gonna say any names, but they spent $250,000 on artists, but because they didn't know what they were doing, they were not in the music market like New York or LA, they wasted it. You can very quickly waste money if you don't know what you're doing. Same thing with digital marketing. If you don't know how to target people properly, and you watch some video and some guy bamboozles you, like, yeah, just get the cheap views from India and all of that. You could spend 10 grand, get a bunch of views, but then you're like figuring out, well, how come I didn't get on DJ, on Niles' radar? How come Capital's not him? How come I don't have nothing in New York? I got nothing in LA. Because you got everything from India. We don't even, 30% of them may be bots, because that's how the game works, kind of. I can tell you that because I have a development company. A lot of these foreign views, Facebook can't track it that well, because for a bot in 2021 to not get shut down from being a bot, they have to act like real human beings. So you got to interact with ads, you got to like stuff and all of that. So, but in the Facebook is a public company. So in the U.S., there's a bunch of other third-party companies that would call them out on it. And if they call them out in the U.S., me as a marketer or even a label, right, you got to spend probably tens of thousands marketing online, on YouTube and all that. Why the hell would I want to spend my money or your money to target people on Facebook that 30% of them may not even be real people, right? So it's regulated way more in like Western Europe, America and all of that. But I'm just saying that, going back to what we started, is like, you gotta prove to somebody that your brand, your potential situation will work. It's not just coming up with one dope song. I'm sure there's situations where, again, if you're in the New York market, because there's so many millions of people in this like small 20-mile, radius from like literally where we're sitting right now, like you said, if you're a kid in high school in Brooklyn, you go to a party, all of a sudden you make a song, then the next high school in Queens, they're playing and it's bubbling, you got the same chance. If that happens in Baltimore, it's probably not gonna end up, on the same level as it would if it was in New York. So you guys are lucky to just be in this, in this town to begin with, because if you're in the middle of nowhere, South Dakota in the city, the only thing you probably do have is just digital marketing, and you better do it right, as an example. But let me ask you a few other questions. So let's see. At what point would you say a label would like cut its losses, right? Because clearly there's artists that label invests into, work with, and then it doesn't work out. Like
That's hard to say because that depends on the deal
right.
that was structured. So that's kind of there's a lot of plays in that, obviously they've heard the music. There might be more music that they feel confident in or maybe don't feel confident in, or, that's their decision to make how they see this, whoever the artist is, how they see his or her future. Okay. But yeah, that's really all in when you do that deal, how much money they gave up, how much money they advanced, whatever, which is supposed to come back. I think that kind of dictates a bunch of that.
Okay. What do you think about like being sort of easy to work with as a personality? Like how much does that affect the relationship for an artist? Obviously you can portray whatever you want for the entertainment purposes, but like, right, you can't be a harder person to work with, or you hear stories all the time. Like how do you feel about that? Like how much goes into that?
Well, that's why you have a good manager if you're just out of control. Who's gonna help you with that? But if you're charismatic and you know how to interact with all the big guys at the label, you win them over. It's like winning a new friend. You get that, they're gonna be more willing to do more for you rather than if you just, come up there and just sit at the table and be like, all right, cool, whatever. And you still gotta sell yourself regardless of getting a deal or not. Because if they believe in you, they're just gonna do more for you.
Right. Let me see. We got a bunch of stuff here. How important is age of the artist for a label these days?
Honestly, I don't really think
would a label pick up a 40-year-old artist?
But they could do a single deal. That's the thing. So nowadays, since it's streaming, there could be a 50-year-old could catch a deal if it's a good record and it's gonna make money. Somebody's gonna sign it. So the longevity of the career might not be the longest, but age matter. Yeah, they might. If there's like a hot 20-year-old who they just see the future with, yeah, they're gonna go after that for sure. But if, like I said, if there's a 50-year-old who got a fire single, they'll do a deal just for that single.
No, I agree. And I think, social media and digital marketing helped a lot of that because you could precisely target a certain demographic. So if you see the good beginnings of some bubbling up, and no matter what age, I agree. I've seen that happen as well. What's the lady's name? She was on American Idol like 5 years ago. She had like an opera voice. She was like 50 years old. I forgot her name, but she ended up getting a label deal in London and had a #1 record on like the rock and pop charts. I'm gonna figure out her name, you know what I'm saying? But she was one of the contestants, so that channel right there helped her get that buzz up, right? And clearly 25, 30-year-olds, probably even 37-year-olds weren't listening to that type of music, but she won over the older demographic because she had exposure, the loudspeaker of American Idol. You know what I'm saying? So there's so many, it just shows there's so many different ways to create that buzz. It doesn't just have to be you grinding, putting up digital marketing dollars, or making relationship with DJs or whatever, going from one party to another. That's one way of doing it. You know what I'm saying? Having a channel like American Idol, if you can get on that, which is obviously not easy, that's another way of doing it. Right? There's 101 different ways you can grab the attention of a label or an investor. But I would say you gotta, to answer your earlier question, like, how much are you investing into yourself? If you were to pitch me as an investor, why would I invest into you?
How much have I invested in myself?
Yeah.
Overall, my whole career, thousands, tens of thousands.
Okay. And what has,
Over 25. And that's just by myself. That's not including mansion record. Like myself, about 25,000.
have you written all of it down, like where it was invested and tracked it, at least
Yeah.
loosely? Okay, that's
Yeah,
good.
about 25. Studio, videos, tours, about 25,000.
Okay. How about marketing it?
Marketing, that was the label. The label, they did that, like, that's what they mainly focused on. They had, like, the layouts of like, where the streams were. Most of my streams came from Europe. A lot of them came from United Kingdom, mainly
Okay.
Great Britain. First it was Great Britain, second was Germany, I think third was Ireland, and fifth was Australia. Something I got like over 10,000 plays in Great Britain, about 5. It ranged around there, but the top, it was like European countries, and that was like mainly the label. I was just busy in the streets, like studio, that's also for like open mic sessions as well, shit like that. About like 25,000.
Okay.
From the year 2013 to now, about 25,000.
Write all that down, and so you're gonna pitch an investor to tell them, all right, did the X, Y, and Z, this is what it resulted in, and if you could give me another 100K, I think it'd get me to X, Y, and Z because I got these relationships, so that's a good, you gotta create a story behind it, but like a business plan type story maybe. Not saying 40-page business plan like a restaurant, but you gotta be able to sell it, like Niles is saying. It's gotta be cohesive. You gotta be able to articulate why it's a good idea to invest into you, as an artist, unless you create a type of buzz when they come to you, right? Which I'm a bigger fan of that strategy, right? You build it, they kind of come.
I'm not even gonna lie, I'm thinking about just like setting up a specific cash out for that, doing live by performance, and just see those.
Yeah, try that out, see what you generate that.
It's everything else. It's just hard.
I'm glad you mentioned, so Niles, let me ask you this. These new platforms that are out, like Patreon or Twitch or even OnlyFans, like when you guys actually get a artist on the label, things are working well, money's coming in, is generating, success. Do you guys encourage that? Do you have somebody in-house that'll encourage to setting those up? Does that make sense for a label artist to do that, or is that more for independent artists, would you say?
I mean, anybody can do it. I see the Twitch thing done more on the DJ side than anything, because they can make money off that. But no, I mean that's I don't really touch that area. That's it's the sales department. But yeah, I mean, try and use every outlet possible.
Especially if they're under like a 360 situation.
Yeah. I mean, almost everybody gets 360 deals now. So.
Yeah. So when it comes to like merch or like, in Capital's case, do you guys in-house handle the touring and that management as well? Or is there like another team or a company Capital partners with to handle tours?
I mean, usually Live Nation, they build out tours. Or there's companies that build out tours for the artist or, for the label. The label can do it, but I think it's always, since we do so much with Live Nation, we just all not just Live Nation, but all of them. We just tend to let them run with it because they own the venues, and they own everything.
They provide the security.
Yeah. So they got in-house people who already do the production stuff at each spot. So I mean, that's kind of like independent companies do that. And then all the whole Live Nation, all those guys, all those brands do that. And as far as management, that's usually up to the artist. You can get recommendations, but
For managers?
for management, yeah, I mean, because obviously the label knows a ton of managers, but do your research first. Yeah. Get a manager that, fits. Like, if everybody's paying, like Hovain right now is on fire. from Brooklyn, you know, everybody wants Hovain to manage him, but Hovey's been in this game forever. So
He kind of manages himself.
yeah, no, he does. Yeah, he does everything himself. He's got the lot. You know, I think Jada was just like, yo, Jada started, or maybe all the locks started using them. He was just telling me about a kid. I was with him last night. A kid he started managing is he out of Brooklyn or Queens? Out of Queens. I forgot his name, but like Hovain, if you ever never heard of him, like Google him. Like he's from Brooklyn, but he finds artists too super early. But he's a dope manager. And like so Jadakiss was bigging him up because he's really plugged in like on the clothing and everything because he's a big guy. And, you know, all these gourmet fancy clothing brands don't really make 3X, 4Xs, but he's always fresh, always got the kicks, everything fits. So obviously know somebody if he's getting it all done, you know. But like, yeah, like Hovain, you should Google him. Hovain is really dope at what he does.
You mentioned merch. How important is merch to the label? Like once an artist starts getting going, it's a good situation.
I mean, the label, it depends on the deal. They signed, if they have a 360 deal, yeah, the label probably get a cut of the merch, but you know, the percentage is all about what happened to the deal. The merch is, the artist usually makes the most money off the merch, especially if you sell it at concerts and places like that. But the other trick with the merch is just self-promotion. So if I got a Capella Gray shirt on that says Vibe Responsibly, everybody's gonna see it. Yeah, I paid for it, so what? And then somebody else is gonna see it. So that's like, I always think if you're gonna get merch, do it with the intent to allow people to wear it, and you got somebody else promoting you. So if you make a hoodie, don't make it $100. Make it like, you know, maybe $15, $20 over course, so people can use it. It's like this is my merch right here. I actually make it right back in there with Colorworks. People, yo, sell the shirt for $40. I sell it for $20. I don't make a bunch of money off it, but everybody's walking around with the shirt.
That's what I tell all of our independent clients as well, right? Because once we get their brands up on the digital side, like followers and all that, we'll start retargeting their fans, and they have e-commerce stores that we set up for them with like Printful. You know, basically what Colorworks does here. You can do it online, but it's better to have a local distributor because you can get way better stuff made and more quality. But if you're doing it digitally through Printful, you could sell it and it works well because you're targeting your fans or people that are warmed up, is what I call it, you know, right? They're already following you. And I tell them, you know, they always like, I want to sell my hoodie for 50. I'm like, look, just sell it for, let's run some ads to see how much it's going to cost us to convert your existing followers to buy it. But if you can break even, I think that's a beautiful situation because they're not promoting you with your own merch. You know what I'm saying? And we've done things like where we put their QR codes on the sleeve so we can, you know, their people are wearing it, people can scan it. Now they find out about the artist. Of course, put the artist's name on it. You could do things like putting the artist's name on the tag. Yeah, but you know, in the beginning stages, it's a beautiful situation to be in where you're breaking even if you have to pay a little bit, even if you're losing a little bit of money, but if you got hundreds of kids or adults walking around with your merch on it, that's part of the market and it's part of that, you know, that journey. Maybe Travis Scott can sell a hoodie for 50. It's a whole different ball game though, right? What I like, or 100, right? Or Kanye, so how much were you selling the jackets for? The $400, the Gap bubble jackets? But that's a whole different ball game, right? He's through Gap. Like, that's different. That's like Michael Jordan getting a Nike deal. You know, and that's what I tell, like, put it this way, I like to make this analogy. When you're smaller, you gotta be able to do marketing strategies that make sense for you at that brand level, because a corner store out here in, you know, Brooklyn and New York, a mom and pop shop, they would never use the marketing strategies that a McDonald's uses, an international franchise, because they're not at that level. Their food may be way better than McDonald's, but they're not a franchise. Just trying to do one marketing campaign that McDonald's would use, they'll probably go bankrupt or it wouldn't even make sense, right? So when artists say, well, my competition is Drake, whatever, I'm not saying don't believe in yourself talent-wise that you can hang with them on the music scale. But when it comes to like marketing strategies or type of moves you can make, there's levels to the game. There's certain things you start doing in the beginning, kind of like we're talking about an investment. You gotta, crawl before you walk and then you run. So, it's just you gotta learn about the business or just understand how things move to be able to get to that level. But yeah, merch, you can start doing that right away. Even if you don't have an e-commerce store, like the digital infrastructure for it, so you could sell t-shirts out of the trunk, right? To help your career out. You can sell shirts, put your artist name on it, somewhere in the back. You guys know Wallow 267 from $1 Million Worth of Game? Yeah, I'm a big fan of him because I met him, he's in Philly, so I went to a few of his events. He's only been out of jail for 2 years now, but he's so driven and like passionate that when he got out, he just started selling t-shirts that would say, Philly always has love for you, or like, you can always make money in Philly. Things that appeal to people in Philly where he was at, and he was able to sell those t-shirts literally at the trunk of his car to support, continue to make videos, make content and all of that. So there's two types of merch, right? There's merch that's branded you, and the bigger you get as a music artist, then you can get your fans to support you through buying your merch and advertising you more and more through that. But you can also, if you can handle it, and don't focus on too many things, so you're not focusing on one thing and making that happen, but you can also make some merch if you're out there in the street all the time, or at parties all the time, or in front of a lot of people. You could make stuff that appeals to a general audience, sell it, keep the profit off of it, and then reinvest it into your career, right? There's so many ways of doing it, because the merch can sell because they want to buy it because it's, right, Travis Scott's logo or whatever he did. Because otherwise, if it's not associated with Travis Scott, and you go to, I don't know, H&M or the mall, would you just pick it up because you see it hanging on the thing? Maybe not. The power of the brand has so much to do with it. You know what I'm saying? So, but I'm glad you see it. There's a lot of money to be made in merch, right? And I'm sure the labels want to figure out, get the artist in front of opportunities that can mutually benefit both the artist and the label.
Oh yeah, yeah. There's a branding department that does that.
Yeah.
Bro, before you go into the next question, you said something about 360 deal. What does that consist of? I know a little bit about what the 360 deal is, but like what exactly is it?
I'll give you my version and then Niles will give you his. So basically, let's say you sign to a label, and the label can help you get into a TV commercial, or can help you get on the episode of Power, or it can help you get a brand deal with some cologne company, or it can help you get a brand deal, you'll be a brand ambassador and get paid for an energy drink company. So all these things that can expose you and these opportunities that can give you, they will take a percentage, I think rightfully so, because they got you that opportunity, off of that business deal, as long as it's in the world of entertainment. Sometimes it may go as far as like, if you become a rep for like a real estate company, that's a little far-fetched, but that should maybe not be included. But basically anything that can get you in front of as an opportunity, they get a percentage off that business situation. But most of the time you want to keep it within the entertainment, means, like anything that the music can touch fans with. And if they happen to, enjoy like some vodka or alcohol, if you're older, or energy drinks, whatever, they try to make these deals, endorsement deals, sponsorships, and make money off of that as well for the artist and the label.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
You know what I'm saying? So, and every label, every deal is different, which the question I want to bring you, if you were to advise, everybody talks about Russ, how he had a lot of leverage when he came to the label. He was able to keep all of his streaming revenue and all of that. So if you can advise an independent artist that is doing decently, with getting his music out there or her music out there, how do you build leverage? Like, how can you sit down, negotiate with a label to make it a good situation for both parties, but get a little bit more than just like an entry-level deal?
It depends on how hard you work. Like, Russ put out a record every Friday for like 5 years. Russ has his own following. Russ did everything by himself for the most part. Russ is a fucking genius, excuse my language, because I used to promote some of his music. But he grinded, he never stopped. And Russ is right from Jersey. But all that legwork he did on the early end is what let him keep everything that he wanted in his deal. Because he had the leverage, because he can go out and he can go sell half of these places alone by himself and say, get on Twitter yo, I'm doing a show, it's in a week. It's gonna sell out. And he was just heavy on Twitter, heavy on SoundCloud. That's where he started. But you knew every Friday he was dropping a record. That's it. So.
And some of the marketing. If you listen to his interviews closely, right? He was on the Complex when Joe Budden was still on with Academics. I forgot what the show was called. But if you remember, Russ was like, I've been hitting you guys up for 7 years writing your emails. And until one of my songs really blew up, then you got back to me. But don't forget the back end stuff as well that is not as sexy, right? Because I hear a lot of artists like say, all right, so you tell me if I put out a song every week for the next 3 years, I'll blow up? Nothing is guaranteed. It's probably not gonna work that easy because I guarantee there's already artists doing that right now. There may be easy 1,000 artists in the Western Hemisphere, US and Europe, doing exactly that thing, having that capability, produce their own records, mix and master, put out every week. But it's like, what are they doing in the back end? Are they reaching out to anybody else, to blogs or to, right, that could happen because there's so much music, there's so much content. So, you know, and Russ talks about that when you listen carefully behind the scenes. He was in Atlanta, he's from Jersey, he was in New York, so he was in 2 huge music industry markets, right? So his chances, this is where like again, if you're in South Dakota, middle of nowhere, you can't walk out on a Friday night to downtown Manhattan, go to Jay-Z's club and potentially meet Niles in the DJ booth with, you know, DJ Enough spinning the party, right? That's not gonna happen in South Dakota. But in Atlanta or New York, all that can happen, but you have to constantly grind and work hard. So it's not just, so you gotta put the record out on SoundCloud everywhere else, but then you gotta spend maybe 10 times more the amount of hours it took you to make that song to be out there networking and making those relationships, or learning how to figure out digital marketing. Otherwise, you're gonna have to pay my company and we're not cheap. You know what I'm saying? But, or you're gonna have to pay a label with not getting a lot of equity, right? Like, I don't know if you're comfortable talking about any type of split. I mean, every deal is different, but if you go with a label that's gonna invest behind you and potentially put a small team of people around you, which now is talking about the publicists, the road managers, the road people, now's this time and all of that, you know, why would you expect to get 90% of everything and on your masters? And I'm all for you guys owning your masters. Trust me, I'm always on the independent side. But you gotta be realistic, right? Like, what would you say to that now? Like, if artists are
I
going
mean,
to
honestly, I don't know anything about that side. Yeah, I mean, it makes sense if everybody's doing a bunch of stuff. Obviously, label, like you said, is still a business. Everybody wants to make money. So, but again, that might fall back to leverage, you know, and how much.
So my question kind of with that. What kind of advice would you be able to offer as far as strategies to upcoming artists to increase popularity and gain that kind of leverage for themselves as an artist? Like, what are some of the best strategies you've seen artists use, or just from your observation?
I mean, like, Russ is a great example where it's the thing with Russ was you knew, regardless if you paid attention or not, you knew a song was going to drop at 3 o'clock on Friday. You could have been out of space for 6 days. You come back on that 7th Friday, you know the song is sitting right there. And it's that, and it's just like, you gotta gain an audience. Don't be scared to go outside and hand out a flyer or, you know, talk to people in the street. Yeah, it sucks doing it, I ain't gonna front. Like, I was on the street team, handing out flyers. It's not cool, but if you really want it, you gotta go do it. It's like,
So what is your take on, I know a few artists who I've seen increase their popularity in a different way. Which, I mean, I'm trying to apply those methods myself, but one of those methods is like, I've seen like artists collaborate with artists who have larger platforms, so like connecting with an artist at an event or something, connect with them. Now you do a song with them, the song comes out, you get that exposure.
oh no, 100%. If you can get on with a bigger rapper, use their platform to shine, and you know, and you know, bring that. Still got to figure out a way for whoever's listening to come back to you. So, you know, that's what's, you know, I think a good example is the whole when Lil Baby jumped on that Drake freestyle. a while ago. I forgot what record that was. Shot through the air. It shot through the roof. And then what happened? And then now Drake had Little Baby on it. Had Little Baby on one of his records, and that shit shot through the roof. So I mean, it's like a great example is Hot 97 Reggae Tip. Shaggy is like Shaggy Presents. Shaggy brought Capella Gray out, right? That audience at Reggae Tip is older. It's not like a high school crowd. So you figure like this, but there's still young people in there. But you figure like this. Everybody knows Shaggy, so they're gonna go, who is this kid that Shaggy just brought out, and why are these people reacting like that? And it's vice versa. So then, now they're gonna go see what Capella's doing, but Shaggy looks hot at the same time because he brought Capella out. And now Capella got fans because Shaggy's audience who buys music might go buy his music. So it's basically just an X where they cross paths. So that's why it's smart to do it. You just gotta do it the right way, or maybe on the right situation, so to say.
Yeah, speaking the right way, make sure it's genuine. Because I got clients that paid Boozy to be on a song with him, Future, they had a song with Rick Ross and all that. But if they don't sort of co-sign it from a standpoint, like if you don't get in the contract or if you don't have a strong enough relationship where at least Boozy's gonna be willing to do a tweet about it or an Instagram post, you may waste a lot of money to get a great artist on, but if you don't have a large amount of money to truly market it, it's not, you would think it would get a ton of views because it got the name Boozy on it, but even major artists, they still do a lot of promotion by going on interviews, reaching out to their favorite DJs they got relationships with, reaching out to their favorite radio personalities that they've been on multiple times and they can reach out to and not a problem. They still have to do like a intentional push behind the new record they got out, right? So if you're doing it independently, it could work very, very well, like Niles is saying, but it has to be the right situation. Make sure it's genuine. What I would suggest for independent artists, don't go to the biggest artists you know, and even if you have the money, like 20K for a feature, cool. Maybe instead of that, spend that 20K on a large artist, search artists in the area that got like 50,000 real genuine followers that they're working hard, they're bubbling up, and get 5 of them for like $4 each and kind of experiment, you know what I'm saying? Because one of those songs could take a life of its own. So be careful with it, but yeah, it's a great strategy. That could work. And one thing I'll say, and it's not that I'm trying to promote my company or anything like that, but the reason I started dabbling in digital marketing, because I believe, look, I had a company called Aero Sound Spinners. It's a company, it's a guerrilla marketing. Like you have a 6-foot aero sign, people throw it up, do tricks with it, you put them on the busy, intersection street corner. It gets a lot of eyeballs on that sign. Matter of fact, they got big enough. It's an international franchise, believe it or not, and they're on ESPN. It's his own sport. But I'm saying that to say that I learned by owning that franchise for some years, and we had deals with Dunkin' Donuts, Verizon, and all that. And when it comes to real marketing, you could do TV commercials on cable TV, radio. You could do commercials on there. You could do billboards in Times Square. That shit's expensive, and it's maybe not that effective always. But out of all the different marketing you can pay for or hire companies for, digital marketing so far in 2021, it may change, but right now is the cheapest way, if you know what you're doing, to get your content or your product in front of the right targeted fan or consumer. So if you can master that, either learn it through my accelerator, or if you guys get enough money and you're busy out there networking in the street, handing out flyers, doing interviews and this and that, we can handle that for you. But that would be my suggestion, is learn how to do it on the micro scale, start getting in front of people, and then start adding the next things with the physical marketing, the relationship building. And I would say that the game, as far as I figured out, it really is have relationships and then have understanding how to do marketing. And that's the business side. First of all, if you don't have a dope record, none of it matters, right? Because I know, a lot of artists that I deal with, independent artists, are like, man, what's all that BS on the radio? Da-da-da-da. And I'm just like, why are you mad? Like, look, the industry wouldn't, if there's not 1 million people or 100,000 people that appreciate that, you may not, but if they can't find a market for it, labels are smart, that they wouldn't be putting that on the radio, asking Niles to spend his time, hours of work to reach out to his people to try to, get him to play this record, this artist or whatever. It's just, why would they do it? If there's no initial the thing was the prototype, the initial proof, the minimal viable product. So you can get mad as you want about the shittiest song you're gonna hear this week on Hot 97, but there's probably a reason it's out there. You know what I'm saying? Like the way, I don't like to, like I'm never ignorant to say that I like some, I'll give you my opinion on your music, right? But I'm 37. I grew up like, when I moved to America, I fell in love with hip hop, but I grew up in like the Tupac, Biggie, Nas years. So if like Lil Xan or this new music that's playing, I may not ever bumped it in my car, but I've marketed for artists like that, and once we target the right audience, this shit went crazy. So I would never be able, you know, I would never say that music sucks. I would always say, let's test it. There may be a market for it, and if it is, and you love what you do and you got the passion for it and you're talented for those people, why not continue with it, you know what I'm saying? And that goes back to the same point that even if you're 50 years old and you find an audience that digs your music, you could still make it something that you can make a living off of, because you could now, in 2021, you could target those people directly, and then you can build the relationships. 20 years ago, you were not able to do that. You know, how many minutes? Is it 10 minutes? Okay. But yeah, I mean, we could just open up for questions if you guys like.